So for day 26 of our scientific well-being project, it's a couple of things, and I'll talk about them in 3 levels. So number 1, the project is to, basically talking with my assistant. We're doing this project where I've asked him to get me 2 or 3 songs written that are based on our data, number 1. I've got a little bit of allergies, so. Number 2 is, so he sent me back the first lyric and just useless, basically, which brings me into the importance of having a great assistant. Now, I'll just share this because I am so impatient and so tired and irritable, chronic fatigue and exhaustion and stuff like that mean that every little blockage feels like this kind of moment of despair where, it's like you got lots of energy. It's just like an electric car, if you've ever, well, I have an electric motorbike. And, when you're on flat ground, your little electric bike zooms along. You get to the slightest little hill and it cuts down in half the speed. You go up a really steep hill and it just kind of grinds to a halt. Flow is the algorithm of energy intersecting with resistance. Now, resistance is out there. You can't change it. The law is going to create a bump for you. It's like my house. The county of Marin was proud to announce that my house would cost $30,000 in permits and another $40,000 to $60,000 in engineering and other fees, like we want an environmental assessment. We're just talking about a 50 by 200 foot piece of land that's just like all the other land next to it, but they want, $60,000 worth of reports. And these reports are mostly so that they don't have to go out and actually look at the land. It's like they want to sit in their little office and charge you 30 grand rather than saying, come on out to the land. I'm going to put this here for this reason, and I've talked with my neighbors and they love it, and here's how it improves my lifestyle. It's like, draw that all up on paper for me. Okay, here you go. We've spent, 10 hours drawing to save you 5 minutes just looking at the land. As of course you're a government official and we have to waste 10 hours of our time because we're in service to you. We pay you with our tax money so that we can have the privilege of wasting 10 hours of our time to save you 5 minutes, because isn't that what governments are for? So, let me do that for 10 hours. And it's like, well, how do I know that won't fall down? Well, I've been working with land for 20 years. I have this experience. It's my house. I'm willing to take the risk. Not good enough. We want so-and-so to say that. Okay, $10,000 for that report. Why is it so expensive? For his insurance, Why is it? It's just endless thing. So this is friction. If there wasn't any of that, I'd be in my house today having a blast, and there'd be more work in this country and all that because I'd be hiring people, and I'd be able to pay it in cash. I mean, by the time they get their $100,000 in fees and various reports, plus then demand that I build an overbuilt house that I don't want to meet minimum square footage. I mean, this is all costing the environment, everything. So this is why we don't have an environmental crisis. We have a people and intelligence crisis. That is what it gets down to. We have, whether it's wars, people and intelligence. Chemical usage and waste and dumping in the oceans, people and intelligence. None of this is really technical. It's people and intelligence. So I'd be happily living in my house and having a blast, and it would be much more creative and interesting, and far better on the environment, far less stress, and all that for all concerned. But that's just not the way it's done here. It's not the way it's done here. When I go to some of the islands in the Philippines, and I see these wonderful little families out that are present and kind and warm and all that. How much did their house cost? $100 in nails, plus bamboo, plus a week of their time. No reports, no government hassle, nothing. No impact on the environment. And they're very happy in this beautiful clean air and forest and stuff. So I'm actually moving some of my project overseas because I can build homes for 5 families and create a little well-being community for less money than getting the permit for one excessively impactful. And and then the joke is, this is an environmental assessment. Well, how do you spend $20,000 having people drive around shuffling paperwork to and from engineers to tell you you've got to put more concrete than your own engineer says into your house for the environment? The environmental assessment is probably the worst thing for the environment. You just add up energy expenditure. So it's just funny. But it's not funny, of course, when we're saying like we don't have enough jobs, we don't have a high quality, our stress level is going, what are we going to do? What's the problem? It's not some other country out there. It's our own skill set to deal with one another and all these bizarre regulations. And so anyway, so I'm talking with my assistant around the song project and Now he's having a baby. Now the project is, of course, to make a YouTube video, make 3 YouTube videos, or at least attempt 3 and hope for one. One that works. Redundancy is part of nature. It scatters 1,000 dandelion seeds, and then 1 takes hold, or 5 takes hold. And that's part of nature's interaction with chance and with abundance. And so I do employ that. But there's 2 parts of it. So my assistant, Devang, I've spent maybe 500 hours training him over the last some years. And so, of course, the relationship is important. If you're going to be training and working closely with someone, you want to pick someone that brings you well-being just to spend time with. And Devang is definitely that person. So he's doing all this research and taking over where, my patience leaves off, going back to that friction thing. For flow to happen, your energy has to be above your friction level. Otherwise, it doesn't. You have 5 volts of electricity, and you come to a hill, and the hill is, 15 degrees, it stops, and 15 degrees is all you can deal with, and that's the end of your drive. And you either turn around and go back the way you came, or you just sit there in limbo. And of course, you can do one of two things. You can increase your voltage, which, energy comes in various forms: enthusiasm, persuasiveness, money, fear, political power, that kind of thing. You have to do this, or I'm gonna, that's how the mafia does its thing. You better do this, or we're gonna chop up your dog, or that's your motivation to get a little bit of extra oomph when you're tired or don't want to do what someone wants you to do. So you can increase your energy. You can also reduce your friction. Well, this is actually a little bit of a tip. So my 30 minutes today was moving the song project along, because Devang sent me the first set of lyrics. It didn't have a single fact in it. As this is just typical. It's like, how does it get any more simple than this? Not a single fact. So he's off on that again. And then, but this is one of the things that, my energy to do things has gone down. Not my imagination, but my energy has gone down by 80% over the last 15 years. So that means that smaller and smaller bumps stop me personally. It's like, I gotta go down to Kinko's and make some photocopies. And it's like, oh gosh, I don't have the energy to do that. So then the whole project comes to an end. And then, or I have to figure out how to reduce the friction. So I have a double-sided $500 multi-print copier, so that my projects don't bump over that particular bump. And then it's like, oh gosh, it's like the battery ran out on my phone, or my recording device. It's like, oh, I give up, I can't do that. So I have 3 phones. And so what I'm doing is I'm using money to translate friction reduction in physical terms into, with money, with resources. And my assistant Devang is part of that. And I mentioned that just for those of you that want to do the 30-day challenge, how to spend 30 minutes a day for maximizing global well-being, which I think is a great challenge. My girlfriend has started doing it. And I have another friend in Thailand who I don't think she has the English capacity to do it. But it's still a good idea. And I just want to say that 80% of my creative output, which has included 300 hours of video up in the web in the last year, 300 hours of this kind of projects. So 300 hours of that, plus probably about 10 websites on various, none of them to make money, all of them for this kind of thing. And a whole host of other things. Having a really great assistant who cares, who's kind. When you're in pain and someone isn't kind, it creates a contraction because it doesn't feel good. And then you've got to spend energy, which I don't have, contracting so as not to feel bad and still go forward. And it's just too tiring. But when you're with someone who's kind, and there's pain, which I'm in pain, so there's some breathing. You don't have to spend the energy contracting. You don't have to spend the energy putting on a performance. Takes a third to a tenth of the energy to get stuff going. So I actually want to really, thank Devang very much, but also put this out there, because some people say, well, how do you have the time? I just don't have the time. How do you have the time? And it's this endless thing around time. Well, it's like, I don't have the time. I have to lay in bed for 8-9 hours a day. Then I have to move slowly for 2-3 hours a day. Then I have to addict in some way. There's this whole idea that we're addicted to, whether it's cocaine or whatever. Pain management can be sugar, it can be TV, it can be hot bath. It's just attending to pain, basically. It's like, I don't have any chemical addictions. But I've got to do stuff to tend to pain. And then I have, less energy. So Devang is actually the reason this stuff gets done. But knowing that and caring about that, because Devang works 3 to 4 hours a day, and once he's in the groove, which he is at this point, it may take me 10 minutes a day to have him do 3 to 4 hours of very productive stuff. He's got high energy and very smart. And so that's leverage for you. And so, that process of how to turn a little bit of time into 40 times more time, basically 40 times more time. 30 to 40, that's my leverage, to take a 10-minute project. I want these songs like this, like this, like this. Here's the text, go do it, bye. And then, he's working 3 or 4 hours a day, and then he has leverage because he then goes and outsources some of it to like Fiverr.com, where a lot of stuff costs $5. And so then he navigates with all their inefficiencies, where what's this, and not enough English, and da-da-da-da-da. So that in turn takes maybe 30 minutes of his time and turns it into 3 hours of their time. So now we're up to, 40, 50 times leverage. So even though I've lost 85% of my, energy, at 40 to 60 times leverage, I'm actually producing more than before. And I'm mentioning that because I don't usually go into so much nuance. But if you're wondering how you can have positive impact and you don't feel like you have any time, part of it is leverage. Part of it is asking for help. Part of it is knowing where to go for help. Part of it is knowing how to train for help. And of course, that takes time. And there's some great books on virtual assisting and all that. And then Audible saves a lot of time because you can listen while driving, cooking, and all that. So I've listened to 500 books on Audible in the last 5 years. That's more than 5,000 hours of interesting information that's useful for something. One of the things that was useful was learning about virtual assistants. I learned about that about 8 years ago. So much help. So that's kind of the piece for today. So that's what I've done. And in empowering you to do more of this in the world, the part about my assistance and all of that is a key. It's a way that you can do things. And I'll add another little piece around that in the hopes that it further empowers you. It takes a lot less energy to prevent a problem than it does to solve a problem once it's not prevented. A lot less energy. And what's catching my eye is you can see a little sticker on my door. That's for a new laptop. And my laptop has been acting up for the last 2 years. You know, just little things will just suddenly turn off somewhere between once a day and once a week, somewhere in that range, and just turn itself off, go blue screen, and reboot. And all I have to do is turn it on again, and it works. But obviously there's something up with that. And, you know, it's 3 or 4 years old, and I use it in humid climates. And I don't want to just have that crash when so much of my stuff goes out on that. And so I'm getting a new laptop. And so I try, as I, you know, iterate my life, to always go, you know, one step further proactively. You know, not buy something in an emergency because I don't have a computer, but to actually constantly, you know, proactively do things a little bit more. And you know, that has put me in this position, that constantly, you know, that constant process, buying things before I need them, training people to save me more and more time. Tomorrow, or actually today, this is early morning, I will be meeting with a new house manager. And basically, I have a 2-page job description that goes into every nuanced detail of this job. But what it does is it takes my entire house and delegates it to someone who comes between 1 and 2 hours a day to manage the house. Mail, garbage, dishes, hot tub balance, watering plants, watering, you know, feeding the fish, doing the laundry, taking out the garbage, taking out the compost, you know, you name it, it's on the list. Daily, weekly, monthly chores. Now, again, what does that do? It frees up 1 to 2 hours of irritating stuff every day. It wouldn't be irritating if I had lots of energy, but I rely on adrenaline to get motivated to do something, I just can't build up adrenaline to take out the, you know, the compost. It's like, oh gosh. And so that's a delegation that again frees up. So Devang frees up 3 to 4 hours a day of all kinds of stuff, including building this website, including I just send him these videos on Dropbox. And then my house manager frees up 1 to 2 hours a day of all that, which means that I have an extra, 6 hours a day. And then my crew, I've been training them so that I just need to maybe spend 1 to 2 hours a day with them on average. And that's how I have the time to do all of this. A house manager, a virtual assistant, and a crew to do my construction work. So that all my time is spent on reducing friction, you know, buying stuff, learning stuff, building up reserves to manage bumps, learning how to create more money so that I can turn money into energy and then energy into well-being. So a little bit of an insight into a direction that you can go that allows me to, you know, go to Thailand 6 months of the year and rest so that I don't lose energy more and more rapidly. That's a feeding environment for me. I gain energy in Thailand, I lose energy in the US. So more time I spend in Thailand, the stronger I am emotionally, mentally, and physically, and the more time I'm here, the weaker I am. So that's also that's part of sustainability. You got to do the things that build you up and cut out the things that cut you down. And That's on all levels. That's in a bank account, that's in a romantic relationship, that's in a lifestyle, that's in a business relationship, that's in our relationship with our planet and our ecology. We've got to do things that build each other up and not cut each other down. All right, thanks for listening. Bye.